What is up, everybody? Covering the Cage weekly update here with you, as we are just about every Tuesday, letting you know everything going on in the world of MMA. We had a big fight week, UFC 216 at T-Mobile Arena this week. We'll recap that, get into looking ahead a little bit, although no fighting events this weekend, really. There is one in town, though, and we'll hear about that in just a second. Adam Hill, Heidi Fang here with you, and a very special guest, Heidi.
Yeah, we've got Johnny Nunez here. I'm really excited about that. Johnny, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good, actually. Kind of stressed out, but you know, it's getting better.
It's good to see you, man. We did, of course, a lot of vlogs together with The Ultimate Fighter. I'm really happy to get you back here, and we're looking forward to talking a lot about this event that you have going on here October 11th.
I feel really comfortable, I think, talking to you guys more than anybody, any of the media outlets, because, you know, we've talked so much about Tough and the weekly blog, so I'm excited to be here and see the studio firsthand now. First
time in the studio. A friend of the show, even though you haven't been in the studio yet, so it's cool to have you in here and check out the new digs. We'll certainly get in. Let's say what your event is first, and then we'll get into more details later on. But you got a really exciting event going on this week.
Yeah, you know, it started off as like a charity event for the Phase 1 Foundation, which is underprivileged kids. But the basis around the whole thing is a couple years ago, a local fighter, Lasavina, passed away, and he worked in the service industry. I work in the service industry, Encore Beach Club, White Republic, day clubs. And so just to keep his name alive, I've decided to put on a industry fights, you'd call it. So everybody who works in the service industry at the clubs, you know, they can just put on boxing gloves and raise money for whatever the cause is. So I've done for the Hope program for autism. We've done to the Phase 1 Foundation last year, cancer, and this year was Phase 1 Foundation again. But just after last week, the tragedy that happened, I got together with the Phase 1 Foundation and asked if we can go ahead and do charity for the victims, and he was okay with it, and so here we are now. You know, I'm trying to get the word out to as many of the victims and as many of the first responders, and find out who are these people that we can directly help. And one of the differences for this charity, as opposed to just raising the money and just giving it to the GoFundMe, which is doing really well we as the group, the Kapow Industry Fights, want to directly give to these people. So for one, invite them to the show. Give them anything personally, because we want to see that reaction from them, and so does everybody else, because that's probably the best part of it all. So
yeah. You saw the information up on the screen a second ago. We'll update you on that again later, and let you know how you can get out there and what you can do to check this out and to help in general. But let's get into a little bit of what went on this week with the fights. UFC 216 at T-Mobile Arena is a very different event. I know, Johnny, you weren't in town, but Heidi, we were out there, and it just had a different feel. I know, for the first time since right after September 11th, they actually did like any kind of ceremony. For those that haven't been to a live event, they don't usually do an anthem or anything like that, like they do at many sporting events. But this week they did have Everlast come out and sing "America the Beautiful." They had victims and first responders in the cage with them. It just kind of set a different tone for the night. And I know it was cool to have some of the Las Vegas guys on the card, especially, we'll get into, Evan Dunham, who was able to have a good performance. And I know Brad Tavares talked quite a bit about it too. It was just a different type of an evening. And there wasn't a huge crowd, but I don't know if any of that really mattered. There was no, the energy was kind of different there. I guess what sense did you have from the event being out there, Heidi?
Well, at first, I was really curious to find out how the public would respond, how many people would come out, if the fight event would have suffered a hit from everything that happened and being the first event to come out and happen during the week. I thought maybe it would have a lot less people than there were, but instead it was quite the opposite. I feel like a lot of people did get out. They came out to show their support for the UFC, for the fighters, for Las Vegas in general, and then of course the 1,500 seats that Dana White gave out to the responders, and as well as some of the family and friends of them. So I thought it was really a good, solid event that they had all of this happen and that the people did come out and respond. I was happy that there was a lot of security. In fact, like every time I walked out, I usually carry a lot of gear with me. I had my roller bag, I had my backpack, I had tripods. And so every time I'm walking through, I was searched. And I was glad that I was searched. Because, you know, it could be anybody just walking through with those kinds of things, but I'm glad that the security was so on point.
You know, watching it from the like on TV, I was expecting it to be, you know, less people, but it looked very, very. It actually looked busy there. It looked pretty packed, and actually one of the girls, Ashley Kiocho, what was in the cage, is a really close friend of mine, and she was just like, she's been having a rough time, so. She said that helped her get through a lot of it. So
A couple Las Vegas fighters were on the card, as you know, and I talked to them a lot last week about what it was like, kind of going through the emotions of being in a town and being a part of the community, and all the healing that was going on, and all the, you know, the sadness, the grief, the anger, all the emotions everybody was feeling, and then trying to fight. Like, if you were in that position, how do you think it would be for you to try to prepare for a fight with everything else that's going on outside the cage?
it's got to be rough. I mean, you got all the other stuff, worrying about your weight, you know, and normally what I like to do is you know, when I'm relaxing, I'm watching TV, and if that's the only thing that's on, I can't imagine sitting around, you know, waiting for weigh-ins and then having that stuff go through your mind. So I feel for those guys. It's a rough week to fight. It really is.
Yeah, for sure. And we saw the guys, you know, come through and battle through it, and actually we get to an interesting case of, I'm not sure exactly what happened with one of the fighters, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But let's get to some of the fights. Let's start right at the top of the card. Kevin Lee, local, Las Vegas now, although, you know, Motown phenom from Detroit. Now he's out in Las Vegas, so he's a local. He gets his shot at a title against Tony Ferguson. We have talked a lot about Kevin Lee here because I see him as just an unbelievable talent who will at one point be a champion. I don't know that he was quite ready for the spotlight. He loves spotlight's not.
I was gonna say he's always ready for the spotlight.
He wasn't ready for maybe this for Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson is elite. He is a really legitimate, just very skilled fighter. Like he's really, really good. And listen, as much as I think Kevin Lee will be a superstar and will be a champion, this may be a lesson for him to say this is the level. And I think he's really close. And he certainly came out and showed that in the first round. He was really impressive in the first round. But the weight cut, which has been brutal, and he's talked about that in the past, the mystery staph infection, I don't know how that weighs into trying to fight.
Makes you exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, all those things, and it weighed in. And then, you know, one of the things, people talk about Tony Ferguson on the ground in this fight and what he was able to do with his jiu-jitsu, but it was really the elbows, I think, that wore Kevin down. When he was on top, and Ferguson is just blasting with elbows from the bottom, and I think it softened him up a little bit, tired him out, and it was tough. How difficult is that position to be in when you're on top and you think you're in control of a fight, but man, the guy on the bottom is just killing you with those elbows.
Those things hurt, especially when somebody's got pointy elbows like Ferguson. So I can't imagine how those feel on the top of your head.
Yeah, it was rough, and you know, Kevin talked about that he got him with the elbows. He said, hey, he was just a better man tonight. He has wanted to go up to 165 if they create the weight class. We'll see. I don't know if it's in the cards anytime in the very near future. He also talked about going to 170. I'm not sure where he's going to fit in for his next fight, but I don't look at this as some major setback in his career. I think it was a really good lesson. He performed very well, and I'm sure he'll be back. And, you know, he's a guy that you've trained around at least some over at Couture.
All the time.
So what do you think about his future as a fighter?
You know, one thing that you really got to commend him for is taking the loss, you know, and giving the credit to Ferguson being the better man. Because, I mean, if you would think all the stuff that he talked about before about, you know, well, trash talk they call it, you would think that he's not going to apologize, or he's not going to say, you know, well, give excuses.
Right.
You know, do the normal, like, oh, I didn't win because of this, but you know, he manned up to it, and he took it on the cheek, and he's the kind of person that works really, really hard, and he works hard in the gym, so he'll be back, and he knows it too. Whether it's at 165 or 155, but he knows he can only get better.
Yeah, he's an interesting case to me because I think a lot of people were introduced to him. The general fan was introduced to him kind of in this fight, and I know that people feel a certain way. You heard it in the arena. There were certain people saying certain things or feeling a certain way, but to me, like Kevin Lee is just a guy who is just a good dude who knows how to talk really well and knows that he can use that to his advantage. And I don't think people really understand who the real Kevin Lee is. Maybe who is he as a person?
He's a great training partner for one. He's a good teammate, and he's tough, and he's a good person that will push you, and he'll ask you questions, and he's open to learning, which says a lot, His personality-wise, he's that happy guy coming in the gym singing, he's not running around talking shit to everybody in the gym, especially our teammates. But I've to be honest, like I see him as a different person when I see him in interviews, and I don't know that person. I know the Kevin Lee in the gym, wrestling with and working out with.
Yeah, and I'm wondering now that he's had this loss, he talked about it in the post-fight press conference about going up to 70 to fight, and I wonder, if this is the right time for that. I know, like, at 25 years old, your body does start to change, and you do start to develop more mass, more muscles, so maybe it is something that could be a good decision for him. But he's one of those guys, I feel like, that like he keeps talking about the 165 weight class, as you mentioned, and I just wonder where he falls in there. Is it in fact something that would benefit him to move up to 70, or is he a bit undersized for that weight class, and could he do better if he continued to fight at lightweight? It's a big question, and I'm not sure where he falls in yet, but I'd like to see him at 70 and hope that weight cut isn't taking such a toll. I know he walks at least, he said he's been up to 200. Yeah. So, he's cutting from at times, I guess, after fights, you can get up that high.
Well, there's a point where you have to just be like, you're getting really too confident with it, and you kind of have to just, mind your P's and Q's and do it like, not saying that him saying he's going to go eat some tiramisu is right, but I mean, he that was a little bit of karma.
Yeah.
He should have been on top of that a little bit more tighter. Is the way I feel, so.
So we talk a lot about Kevin Lee, obviously a local main event, falls short in his quest for a title. He will be back, but on the other side, Tony Ferguson, got to give him credit where it's due. The guy is just really good, 10-fight winning streak. He's fought some of the top guys. I certainly still want to see him fight Khabib, but for right now, I don't think there's any question. I'm even including Conor McGregor. Tony Ferguson is the best lightweight in the world.
Yeah. I wonder, could Conor even match that? I don't know.
With Ferguson's ground game, it's, he's very dangerous. It shows, you wear somebody down and weather the storm. As long as he can weather the storm, that he can, look what he's doing from the bottom.
Yeah.
Even if Conor knocked him down, and all his jiu-jitsu game is impeccable. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So Tony Ferguson comes forward as the interim lightweight champion. We'll see if he ever gets a shot to unify the title. I doubt it. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Conor will fight Nate Diaz again, even though they said after the fight it's Tony and Conor. We will see. But certainly some interesting fights on the horizon. I'm okay with Conor Nate and Tony Khabib. I think that's a great, like a 4-man tournament,
right.
And get that together and see what they'll do. And then, as you said, Kevin Lee go forward and see what he can do in the division as well, move up. And then we've also got Gaethje and Alvarez coming up, which is a really exciting fight too. So we'll keep an eye on that division. A lot going on there at the top in the UFC. We'll talk about an interim champion, a champion that's only defended the title once in Conor McGregor. That's not the case at flyweight. Demetrius Johnson is just unbelievable, and we saw it again on Saturday. Not only dominating for 5 rounds, but then late in the fight, hey, you know what? I've already dominated the fight, but why don't I go try something nobody's ever seen before in a cage and just throw my opponent up in the air and grab an armbar? This guy, I feel like we haven't talked about Demetrius Johnson enough over the years, but I also feel like, what can you even say? Like, the guy is just, he's taken on all comers in the division. He's beaten them all. He's found new ways to do it. I don't even know what to say anymore.
He keeps making it more impressive every time, which is, can't ask for anything more from him.
Like I said, you're at a loss because you feel he's undercovered and underappreciated because Like he doesn't get the big numbers. Like he's not a household name. He's not, the pop, but he should be. But then at the same time, like I said, I don't even know what more superlatives you could use. Like the people that cover the sport and the people that are in the sport just know how amazing he is. And I feel like maybe he's just never going to be that guy in the household name, because what more can he do? I don't know what else he can do.
Yeah.
I don't. I like, what is he going to, he's going to like, I don't even, he's going to create something else. I never thought he could throw somebody in the air and catch an armbar.
The mouse wheel. He's going to have to run around the whole octagon without ever touching the mat.
Let him try to go for a super fight. Maybe go up to.
Well, that's the thing, though. But he also doesn't want to. It's clear that he doesn't want to do that, and so he should.
Yeah. Why doesn't he want to?
I mean, that's a fair question.
Because he doesn't have to. I don't think nobody should make him do it, but. If he's content with just putting away people like this every fight, and there comes a controversy with I'm not getting the respect and this and that, but look, everybody else is doing super fights,
Yeah, I do want to see that Dillashaw fight. I can't deny that it
might be the
me.
135 champion too. I mean, if he takes the title,
right,
then
if
Demetrius can come up.
Yeah.
But I would.
So does that say he's just afraid of Cody, or?
Possibly. I mean, I would rather see if TJ loses at 135 and he can come down to 125. I would like to see that fight, but I don't want to make Demetrius chase into another division. If somebody wants to come down and fight him, good. Like that's I'm fine with that, and I would like to see maybe that happen if TJ loses at 135. We will see what happens. I don't know anybody at 125. Like Benavidez, I think is right there, but he's had the opportunity, hasn't been able to do it, and he's hurt right now. I do want to see Henry Cejudo again, because I think Henry Cejudo has improved a lot. I don't know that he quite was ready for what he was getting into the first time, and I think that guy is legit. Yeah. So we'll see if maybe he can challenge him. But Demetrius Johnson, another spectacular performance.
And don't forget Sergio Pettis too. I think that he has a lot to bring to the table, and I think that he could be a game opponent for Demetrius if he could get
Still young, so there's plenty. There is plenty of options out there, and we'll see. What happens with Demetrius Johnson, but again, just a spectacular performance. Okay, wanted to hit a couple of the other fights real quick from UFC 216. Fabricio Verdum beat Walt Harris easily. It was just, he dismantled him after getting the opponent on like 3 hours notice. I think, first of all, I know as a wrestler, you don't know who you're gonna wrestle coming up. Whoever's gonna wrestle, you wrestle. Is that mentality in MMA, is that the same? Do you think guys just switching opponents at the last minute, do you think it's a big deal?
On which end? On backing out of a fight? Because
I'll just start with Verdum getting a different opponent on 3 hours notice. He said he went back, watched some tape, and he was fine. Obviously, it didn't affect him.
Yeah.
But is it a big deal in MMA? Like, in wrestling, like you said, you just take on whoever you take on.
It depends. It depends what's at stake.
Yeah.
I guess. Some fighters are. I'm here to fight anybody. Don't care. I just want a paycheck. And then there's fighters that are like, hey, I really need to fight smart. I need to fight smart. Find smart matchups. That I'm not just going to go in with somebody who has 10 wins in a row. Right. So that kind of stuff. I mean, I guess if you're as great as Verdum as like on the ground and jiu-jitsu and stuff, this guy's got no ground game. Then I always loved being an amateur fighter. Hard to find fights. It's like, well, these guys aren't wrestlers, and me being a wrestler, like I know I could take anybody down. So in that aspect, you got to be smart about what you're doing. If you're fighting at the level that Verdum is, I think you should take a better look. But it's a big payday for him as well.
Yeah, for sure, and he thinks it will put him in position at least to be close, maybe one more fight to get back to his title. I do want to look at the other side, though, with Derek Lewis. It's interesting. Derek Lewis, so what happened is Derek Lewis woke up. This is the story that we heard on Saturday. Derek Lewis woke up. He's had a persistent back injury. He's been fine leading up to this camp. Woke up, his back just tightened up. He couldn't get out of bed. The doctor came over, inspected him, and said, no way you can fight, you're out. It sounds like it's awful, first of all, to have injuries like that where you just, like, some days you just don't know if you're going to be able to wake up. Have you ever woken up on a fight? Waking up? Have you ever gotten up on a fight day in bed and just been like, I got nothing. No. I'm hurt. I can't do this.
That's all in your mind. I think somebody had to call the doctor in.
Yeah.
They knew if they call the doctor in, then there's probably about a 95% chance that he's not going to let you fight.
Yeah.
So somebody had to call the doctor in the room. Not saying that he'd try to pull out of it, but Matt Hughes, I guess back in Dubai years ago, he got out of bed and he cramped up or pulled something, and he ended up beating one of the Gracies. It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he didn't call the doctor in his room, obviously.
So here's the interesting thing. Now, not being a conspiracy theorist, I guess to some level I am. Talked to Derek Lewis 3 times last week. On all 3 occasions, he said he didn't want to fight.
Oh yeah?
He was very affected by the shooting, didn't want to do it, thought the fight should be canceled, wanted to go home, and thought better, changed his mind. So I think there's a possibility that his emotions got to him. And I'm not. This is not a critique at all. I'm actually. I think it's perfectly legitimate that Derek Lewis he lives in Houston, just went through the hurricanes. He was actually out, and we talked about it here a couple weeks ago. He was actually out pulling people out of their houses, pulling people out of floods, went through all this emotion in camp, and he said, like, he got here and he was like, okay, that's kind of behind me, like, I can move on to my fight, and then all of a sudden the shooting happens, right around the corner from where they're staying.
Was he here during?
Yeah, so I have some part of me that just thinks he just didn't want to fight. And again, I'm not like criticizing him.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's perfectly okay. I think there was a possibility in his mind, maybe my back's feeling a little sore. Like, you know what, this is just a bad sign. I'm out. And I hope this is not coming off as like a bashing of him. It's absolutely not. Like, I totally understand where it's coming from. I would probably be in the same position of, if my emotions are that running wild, I don't know that I want to get in a cage and fight. And he said, one of the things he said is, all these people are getting shot. I'm watching this horror and this terror like on TV, and it's right around the corner, and then you want me to go punch a guy in the face that I don't have a problem with? Like, I can't do that. And so it makes a lot of sense to me. That story makes a lot of sense to me, that I would not want to fight either. I mean, again, you don't know how people are going to react. How many people have we encountered? Like 1,000 people this week that we've talked to about going through all this, and everybody has a different reaction. Everybody has a different feeling. So if that was the case, I totally support Derek Lewis for that. It's totally makes sense to me.
And you got to stand behind him, especially
Yeah.
with all the other stuff going on. It's like, it's choice.
Yeah.
It's his choice.
It's also possible it's total coincidence, and his back just got hurt, and he couldn't fight. But again, we talk about all the emotions. Evan Dunham, Brad Tavares, guys that talked a lot about really wanting to win for Las Vegas. Dunham was in a spectacular fight. Tavares actually came through and had a huge win on that card. Heidi, you were kind of back there to hear what they talked about as far as being, especially Tavares, as far as fighting here in Las Vegas and what it meant for him.
Yeah, Tavares definitely felt like he had a lot on his back coming into it to represent and to support Las Vegas and what everything was happening and what it was all going through. He even said, like, the preparation just in the week leading up to getting to the fight was difficult. He said it was hard to try to imagine, like, I have to cut weight, I have to do this, I have to, prepare to get to the arena, and everything was going on with the shootings. So for him, he said it was definitely a different type of camp, a different type of feeling, but that his entire support was out there for the community, and that he was just hoping that as his adopted hometown, of course he's from Hawaii, that he would be able to put on a good show, and he was glad to be out there first, to be able to try to pump some energy into the crowd. And he came out really aggressive, and it was a good fight for him. I like the way he was utilizing the jab in that fight. He was really pushing it on and mixing up his levels, and it was a great performance by him, probably one of the more aggressive that we've seen from him, and there's a lot of improvements there.
And in the Evan Dunham fight, Dunham in a lot of trouble early, but he talked about Vegas strong, and he's not going to quit, he's not going to give up, and came through with a very exciting, very fun fight against a guy, and Benil Dariush, who I think is a really, really good fighter, and Dunham came through, and it was a fun fight to watch, certainly, and one that he could have easily lost, and kind of not rallied back in, and he stuck around.
That's what he does. He's like a pit bull in there. He always comes back in to fight somehow. He gets in there no matter what. But the thing is, he was unfortunately taken to the hospital after the fight, so we didn't get the opportunity to speak with him. But just the outpouring of emotion when he won, and like you said, the Vegas Strong speech that he had, and then with the flag draped around him, it was really just a great moment. And even though it wasn't a W, it was a great thing to see from Evan Dunham out there, and just to have a couple Las Vegans representing.
Yeah, real quick on Evan Dunham. He's a guy who has been around town for a while. So as you've kind of seen his career, did you think he was done for a while? He lost a bunch of fights, the 3 or 4 fights in a row. I think it was 3. Like, he was like, all right, this guy was a great prospect. Now he's kind of done. It's been cool to watch his resurgence.
You know, he's been my training partner for years, and just the last few camps, you know, with him opening up his own gym and school, he's kind of distant a little bit. But you know, I just remember him going on the win streak and then going on the losing streak, and he knows when to you know, take a break. You know, there was a little bit where he's like, hey, I'm just going to focus on my family for a little bit, and sometimes that's the best thing, sometimes it's the worst thing. You know, I'm kind of a little bit on of a break right now as well, but it's not always a bad thing. You know, you never really know. It kind of fits every fighter, you know, what they need personally, because everybody's different. So he's a tough dude, and he's obviously not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, it's been very cool to watch his resurgence in the UFC from, you know, very highly ranked, you know, highly touted prospect to, as we said, a guy who people wrote off as, I guess we were wrong about him, and now to see him on the rise again, and very cool to watch that story with Evan Dunham, and he'll be back soon, I am sure, after a very thrilling fight on Saturday. UFC 217, the next big fight. We heard from George St. Pierre, Michael Bisping, so you can check out some of that stuff. Michael Bisping, more good trash talk about George St. Pierre just being fatter and slower than he used to be, and not any different. So you can check that out up at Covering the Cage, and tell us again about what's going on with you and the you know, a great event that you got coming up.
I mean, it's tomorrow night, October 11th at the Westgate Casino. 17 fights with some really good people, actually. Well, I think our main event, one of the guys is 380 pounds, the other guy is 400 pounds.
Oh, nice.
So about almost 700 pounds.
Slugging it out.
In the ring. But, you know, the whole basis about this, like I said, it's time to get back to normality again, and we're not going to back down from whatever happens in our city. So if you can come out, right now, if anybody would like to, or knows anybody that needs the help, we're still looking for people to help as far as victims and families. So if you know somebody, give me a call, get on my email, Instagram, Twitter, anything.
And what's the handle, just so they can find you?
Johnny Boy MMA is my Instagram and my Twitter, and my email is johnny.nnz@gmail.com, and hope to see everybody there. It's going to be a great, fun night.
What time do the doors open for
Doors
fans?
open at 4, first fight is at 5. And we're going to have lots of cool stuff there, photo booth, live painting shows, special performance by Echo, who's a local artist, and a lot of fighters are coming. A bunch of UFC fighters are coming out and supporting. Yeah, so you never know who's going to show up. Mayweather showed up to my last one, so
there you go.
Hopefully he shows up.
Very cool event here in town. Just check that out. I had the info up there, and check out Johnny on all the social media, Johnny Boy MMA, to get information on that and go help out. It's a good event, a fun event, but also very good for the community. So be a part of that. Well, that will do it. We will be back with you guys again very soon, letting you know everything going on, as we said, in the world of MMA. CoveringTheCage.com is where you can find it. Follow us at Adam Hill LVRJ, at Heidi Fang, at Johnny Boy MMA as well. And we'll be back with you next week. Stay tuned. Till then.
Thank you.